I'm going to introduce all three of the speakers, and then they will get up in tandem. They're all very competent, capable women. I'm sure they can do that. Okay, so Maxine Hayes, Dr. Hayes, I'm going to start with that one. And just say that we're very fortunate to have her with us today. That's because, in spite of being our state's retired health officer, she's one of the busiest people I know. And without a doubt, one of our state's greatest treasures. Maxine got her medical degree from the State University of New York, Buffalo, where she also has an honorary Doctor of Science degree. She also got her MPH from Harvard University School of Public Health. She has an additional honorary Doctor of Science degree from Stoneman College. She's held ongoing faculty positions in pediatrics at the University of Washington School of Medicine and as a professor in the UW School of Public Health. For 14 years, Maxine served as the State Health Officer for the Washington State Department of Health, advising the Governor and the Department of Health Secretary on issues ranging from responding to medical emergencies to preventing childhood illnesses. Before that, she held various leadership positions within the Department of Health, and before that, she was the medical director at Odessa Brown Children's Clinic, an affiliate of Children's Hospital and Medical Center here in Seattle. She has a list of honors and special national responsibilities that's far too long for me to recount. I had the privilege of traveling to Maxine's home state of Mississippi several years ago, a trip that I will never forget. And it was on this trip that I got to know this incredibly passionate, inspirational, and delightful person who shared many stories of her growing up years. Now, Bette Hyde, I would like to introduce you to another force to be reckoned with. Bette Hyde. I first got to know Bette shortly after we both started our respective positions at Thrive Washington and DEL. We worked very closely together, and I've come to very much admire this woman. Her energy, her commitment to young children, as well as her willingness to take risks and to open herself up in terms of new ways of thinking and being. Dr. Hyde has served as the governor-appointed Director of Early Learning, DEL, since 2009. She's led efforts to develop our state's 10-year early learning plan, early learning development guidelines for children, birth to grade 3, and WA-KIDS, our state's kindergarten assessment process. Under her leadership, Washington was awarded a $60 million Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant, a $33 million Maternal, Infant, and Early Childhood Home Visiting grant, and a Frontiers of Innovation partnership with the Harvard Center for the Developing Child. Before coming to DEL, Bette was superintendent of the Bremen School District. That was very well known for its partnerships with local early learning groups to improve kindergarten readiness. Bette earned her PhD from the University of Minnesota and completed a postdoctorate administrative certification from the University of Washington. And last but not least, Megan Kroll. And I want to introduce you to her because she speaks about endorsement from experience, and she's going to recount some of her experience. Megan became endorsed as a level 3 infant mental health specialist when she was still living in Michigan. She has a long career in the early childhood profession in roles including teacher, home visitor, play therapist, policy analyst, researcher, supervisor, child care consultant, and child parent psychotherapist. She holds a master's degree in social work from the University of Michigan, and she's worked in community mental health centers, human service and organizations, and educational organizations. She describes herself as a parent, partner, sister, godparent, daughter, and auntie, where she humbly learns many things that she also has learned professionally. So please welcome me in joining them to the podium.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction, and I am very pleased to be here. In fact, I was thinking when Nina left Thrive by 5, one of the things that she did was to sit down with me and talk about this organization and its very early beginnings, and it's very gratifying to see how much progress has been made. In fact, this is a very historical moment for our state. So I acknowledge the leadership and the work that you've done to this point, and thanks so much to our colleagues from Michigan, who we continue to learn from. In fact, in my first job as the Bureau Director for Parent-Child Health Services, I was responsible for getting first steps the legislation through the legislature and then implementing it. And Michigan was the state that we looked to for maternity support services. And that was 30 years ago. So here you are again. And thank you so much for the work you are doing in Michigan and for your willingness and generosity of sharing that with us. I want to acknowledge the leaders and our guests, but more than anything, I want to acknowledge you. And that's the people in this audience. You are not here by accident, and I'm so happy that we had a challenge of trying to really accommodate all the people who wanted to come to this meeting. So that says a lot. And it says a lot to me being a pediatrician and looking at the words infant mental health, which I can remember the time when you wouldn't even put those words together. In fact, in some audiences right now, it's difficult to really fathom those three words being together. But I was very fortunate enough to study with Dr. Brazelton. I'm one of the Brazelton kids. And was in Boston, the only female, the only person of color that was a third-year resident at Children's Hospital. And Dr. Brazelton was considered a kook. And I am so happy that God allowed this man to live as long as he has lived, and he is still living. He's in his 90s. But I am so happy that he lived long enough to be gratified by the truth of what he understood at that time, but no one else did because there was no evidence. We didn't have MRIs and CT scanners like we do today. And today, we can back up everything he observed. It was by observation, and I was one of those kooks that believed that what he was saying. One of the very few ones as a third year, being female and also a person of color. But what I learned from him was so true, that infants are not just passive. They're learning all the time. And as human beings, who really, they depend on all of us for their existence, we have to really be so aware that every decision, every move, everything that we do, they're little geniuses. And so I want to commend you, because what you represent is the infrastructure, the capacity that we need to build in this state to take all the understanding and knowledge that we now have about health into every community. And you're going to be the ones to do it. Think of yourself as the 12th man. Because you are. You are the 12th man in the mental health community as a subspecialization. You are. And you know, there are not many states that understand the 12th man. But you know, in Washington, we know what that is. I am so pleased that we have now arrived to a place where we are focusing not only on health, but well-being. And understanding is not just about physical health. It is also social and emotional health. It is about relationship health. And it's developmental, being a pediatrician, understanding that the birth three period is so critical. In fact, in our state, a third of all of our children in that category are born in poverty. We also know that this is the age group that has the highest rate of maltreatment of any of the populations and age range. And also, this is the group with the highest incidence of foster care placement. What we've also learned is that mental health is intergenerational. It's not just about the infant. And that's why we have to really appreciate the environments in which our infants grow and develop, so that the caregivers, the primary caregivers around the infants, have to be so healthy themselves and have the very grounding of not disease but health and well-being, so that they can adequately care for these developing infants during a period that is very critical in the development. The reason I say that what we're doing today is so critical because you are representing the infrastructure of capacity in terms of infant mental health, and using the science that we now understand relates to the context of why this is so important. Now, one thing that I notice about the Michigan model, and I want to challenge us, we've got to get something else that all of our providers have to understand that is a major contributor to whether we have mental health and well-being, and that is stress. Stress is one of those fundamental things that can really, really undermine mental health and well-being. And whether it's stress related to maternal depression, socioeconomics, or even disparities, racial, ethnic issues, health inequities, whether it is related to adverse childhood experiences. All of these things are generational, and it really calls and begs for us understanding how do we mitigate that, because a lot of our circumstances are precipitated by how people do not cope well with stress. It's the coping piece and how we perceive what stress is. And there are a lot of families, all ethnic groups, all financial backgrounds that need that level of support. The concept of relationship health is something that I'm becoming very familiar with myself, and understanding the importance of having healthy relationships and being the basis for the health and well-being of our families. Washington State is the best place to do this work. And I say that because we have worked so hard to create the environment and context to do work like this. And when I think about the assets that we have at the university, when I think about the frontiers of innovation work, the understanding that we now have of early brain and child development, when I see what we've done with the courts, the home visiting, the frontiers of innovation. I mean, there's just so much. Essentials for childhood. Washington State was one of 5 states to get this award from the Center for Disease Control, and that is, how do you build safe, stable, nurturing relationships and environments for children at the very earliest stage of their development. So I think we have a lot going on in which you could also contribute from your multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary perspectives. And so I'm very pleased to see the number of you here. I hope that you will really take this whole concept of being the 12th man out there in terms of our infrastructure for getting this work accomplished, so that years from now we can look back at this beginning, this little baby step that we've taken. And I'm not going to be on just the sidelines as you try to do this. I'll be there really encouraging you and pushing you forward, because this is very, very important work. So thank you for having made the choice to be here today, and I hope many of you will in fact become endorsed. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. And let me just tell you that the 2 ladies that were up here are 2 people that I just adore, love working with, learn many things from. Nina invited me. I could never even think of saying, of course not. I will always be here for you, Nina. Thank you for everything we've done together. And Maxine, oh my gosh. And I want to echo Maxine's thank you to you. You could be anywhere today, except outside probably. But here you are. You know, you are curious, you're committed, you are thinking about this. And I think it is a historic moment. I mean, to really take that next step. So thank you for being curious about that. Something that Nina, I don't know that she knows about me, but something that I'm resonating with like a lot today is, I don't tell a lot of people this because they usually step away from me when I do, but I am a licensed clinical psychologist in this state. And child psychologist, and I keep my licensure up with continuing ed hours. So this is music to my ears, that people are talking about this in open public and saying, let's go there. So I think, Nina gave me this question to ask, and the question Nina wanted me to answer is, how does endorsement relate to childcare? Of all the things we do to childcare. And all I can think to say is incredibly well, really, really well, for a number of reasons. First of all, this is early learning time. I don't mean the Department of Early Learning, I mean early learning that we all share from all of our disciplines, all of our departments, all of our background. The president is all about it. The governor has invested an unprecedented amount in early learning. The mayor of Seattle is running crazy excited about this. It is the time. This is the teachable moment from my former background. Let's make it work. Let's really teach and do it. People for a long time have been talking about the impact of all the old studies, the period preschool studies, or those kind of things. And people, I think, at some kind of old-fashioned, intuitive level, get preschool. But boy, you look at all the evidence from Harvard, from iLabs. I mean, preschool is important. Please hear me. It's critical. But then what determines preschool is what came first. Those first 3 years. Probably in utero, too, for that matter, as Maxine always points out. But this is the time when every interaction counts big time. I know you've probably heard the Harvard data that there are 700 neural connections each second. I can't even quite conceptualize that. So I thought, what does that look like? So if there's 700 each second, doing a little math, there's 42,000 in a minute. And there's 2.5 neural connections each hour during those first 3 years of life. My gosh, every interaction counts big time. We have coined in Washington State a term that I've actually heard Jack Shonkoff start to use called one science. That, it's simple and it's profound. What really, really, really matters is the relationship during each second, minute, and hour. And whether that's with the family, the child care provider, the home visitor, the caregiver, they have to be intentionally loving and focused and there for that child. Looking at them, communicating with their eyes and their words, I'm here for you. And that's what this is about. It's all about relationships, and that's, paramount. There is, a growing focus on birth to 3. Nina mentioned and was actually instrumental in beginning our Fine Home Visiting program, which is now expanding big time, because people get that. We have a table of our early support for infant and toddler folks, dealing with young children with disabilities, birth to age 3. If you do that, our Washington data tells us that when kids are 3, 30% no longer need special education. Wow, what a savings and a gift. Because those first 3 years are so, so critical. We right now, I hope some of you know that maybe aren't familiar with child care providers, are all about trying to support child care providers and preschool teachers and home visitors and everybody for that matter to increase their skill set. Because child care providers, think about it, are out there alone. Up to this time, they've had very little time, money, staff development for them. With the grant that Nina mentioned, we have started something called Early Achievers, which is not a perfect system, but it's a good one, because it's designed to produce positive outcomes for children. That's how it was developed, how it was crafted. And our child care providers need 10 hours of training. If they sign up for Early Achievers, hey, they get scholarships, money for supplies, they get incentives, they get a coach. So there's and the coaching model is reflective coaching. I mean, there is an incredible overlap between what we're doing in a broader way and this beautiful focus on infant and toddler mental health. So, I can see offering trainings to child care providers who are hungry, and they're hungry for this. I can see, having endorsements that we partially fund or somehow get some money from somebody important to fund, because they need that. I can think of no better skill set for child care providers that serve infant and toddlers than this endorsement. I mean, this would be wonderful. Maybe in the future we would require it. Don't tell anybody because I don't have that authority right now. But, you know, I think it's something that infancy is the basic building block of everything. Adult health, you know, school readiness, you name it. We've got to do really right by our neediest kids. And that is precisely what this focuses on. So thank you for being pioneers. Thank you for considering endorsement. And let's see how this rolls through. Thank you for being here and what you do.
Hi there. I am the last in the series of lunch speakers. My name is Kroll, as Nina mentioned. And I am endorsed at a level 3 as an infant mental health specialist. And I think I'm going to talk louder. Okay, great. I think I was the first person in the state of Washington to be endorsed. And I'll tell you a little bit about my story. Nina asked me here today to talk about the significance of endorsement in my life, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means to me as a Washingtonian as well. So I started the process of becoming endorsed on May 21st, 2008, and received my endorsement on May 13th, 2009. I'm honored today to talk to you about the significance of endorsement in my own life. So first I want to talk about it personally and professionally. So I was trained in Michigan as endorsement was being developed. And I heard about endorsement through friends and colleagues from afar. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time. And as it unfolded, I heard more and more about it. When I started working clinically here after I moved to Washington State in the fall of 2007, I got questions about my training and experience. And so I decided to move forward with endorsement for the significant benefits I saw for myself personally. So I'll go over some of those, since some of you may be interested in sort of what it might be like for you. And I'll echo some of the things that Nicole talked about in terms of her quotes from practitioners who've been endorsed, and also what Stacy talked about for herself. So first, as was outlined this morning, the endorsement competency guidelines provide a comprehensive shorthand for infant mental health practice. Echoing Stacy's statement almost exactly, when I look at those words after my name, those letters, IMH-E, I am really proud that what that says about what I embody as an infant mental health practitioner. Second, one of the major benefits for me has been an ongoing connection to my community, so membership in WA-AIMH. I've traveled back to go to the conference there, and I've been advisor to another person who was moving through the endorsement process. And I'm staying even more strongly connected to my community, and I'm really excited about that here in Washington too. The third benefit for me was determining future training directions, and that was echoed from this morning too. I got some feedback when I got my portfolio review about screening and assessment and cultural competence, and so I've really used the ensuing years to pursue those training competencies more thoroughly for myself, and so I've really set my sights on that in a way that I might not have been able to in rounding out my own competency and experience. And then fourth, ongoing reflective supervision. This has been a tough one for me. There's a requirement that in Michigan that you're supervised by someone who is also endorsed. And so I've had to go out of my way. I get supervision via Skype from a reflective supervisor in Michigan who actually was a supervisor of mine way back in the day, actually when I was in graduate school. But that has been an incredible connection for me back to my roots and back to infant mental health. And so I'm really grateful that the endorsement process has really pushed me to keep that connection going. Next, I want to just talk a little bit about the significance of endorsement here in Washington State, pulling some of those threads. And the first thing I want to talk about is a shared language across disciplines and licensures. It's a professionalization and a powerful joining of forces for us as an infant mental health field when we stand together in this way. The second is that it's really helpful for individuals like me, as I described just now, and in a multitude of ways, for many individuals to come together more strongly in community in Washington State. I'm just thrilled at the number of people who are here today and that we are all embarking on this exciting adventure together. The third part is, for me, it's significant for policymakers and politicians so that they can hold babies in mind as they enact legislation, allocate resources, and make policy. And I'm really excited about that part of endorsement in our state here. The fourth thing, that it's meaningful, it's just really meaningful for us to come together in community and to identify statewide training and supervision needs and to be able to speak about those all together and have a place to build that together. So to end, I want to say that my roots, like those of infant mental health, extend back to Michigan, and I am just so proud to be a part of bringing endorsement to Washington State. Thank you.